Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for another episode of Behind the Studs. Give it up for your hosts, Colin Shaw and Jimmy Driscoll. Damn it, wrong button. Oh, there we go. Here's... Can I be done?
Really nice joke, thanks. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Behind the Studs. I'm Colin.
I'm Jimmy.
How's everybody doing today?
Great.
Good.
Absolutely
Jimmy, you got your
awesome.
hat on today? Look
I got
at you.
the Patriots hat on.
All right.
And I'm mourning the Saints.
Yeah, that was kind of a bummer,
It was
I think.
awful.
Yeah.
Terrible.
But you know what? When it was run at regular speed, it was really close. Everything you've seen since then, and Jimmy's sick again, go figure.
Sorry.
But yeah, I mean, when you run at regular speed, it looked like it was really close. But everything you've been seeing since then has been the slow-mo, and you could tell it was definitely pass interference. But
Yep.
I don't know.
Even the guy said it was pass interference. The guy created the pass interference that he interfered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
it is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah, we're going to move on.
Move on.
Well, we have a really exciting show for you guys today. We've been talking about it for a while. We have in our presence here a building inspector, an actual official.
Not worthy. We're not worthy. We're not worthy.
Don't worry, he's ready to hammer you in a little bit.
Oh,
so.
I'm sure he will.
We have Stephen Way with us. He is a building official here in East Lyme and Niantic. Hello, Steve.
Hello, how are you?
Steve.
I'm well. How are you?
Thank you, gentlemen, for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for agreeing.
Yeah.
We never thought we'd have anybody this important agree to come on our
really?
show.
I'm
Yeah.
impotent.
Yeah.
But not necessarily important.
No.
But hopefully we'll try to clear up some misconceptions.
That would be awesome. Yeah.
About building officials and what we do.
Nice.
Beautiful. Perfect.
Well, we did get a couple of questions through the Facebook, so that was nice to see. Thanks, guys, for reaching
Thank
out.
you very much.
So let's just start with, who are you? Where do you come from? What's your experience? Oh, that's sort of fun.
Brief background, Steve.
Yeah.
Well, I come from my mother and father.
Okay.
Thank God.
Good. You're one of those.
But,
Okay, good.
no, I'm a third-generation builder.
Oh, wow.
Father, grandfather. My father got into owning a lumberyard as well. So I grew up in a lumberyard.
Oh, wow.
That's my earliest memories.
Yeah.
Playing with plywood.
Very
and,
cool.
Sweeping the floors.
Of course.
And got into construction, built a bunch of spec houses in the late 70s, early 80s. So
That was still a good time for it, right?
It was a good time
Yeah.
for it. Then I got into the engineering side of it. And we had a recession back then, if you recall. So I
Absolutely.
wound up having to go get a job.
Yeah.
And, so I worked a number of years at Thames Valley Steel over in New London.
Okay.
And got into structural engineering and then went out on my own for a number of years and still do a lot of design work on my own.
Nice.
Oh, cool.
And, building official since 1988.
Oh, wow.
And,
Really?
doing a lot of fill-in for other people, worked
Yep.
in Norwich for a few years, and here I am in East Lyme.
So always down in this area, though, or
Yeah, New London County.
New London County? Okay.
So, Steve, was it the job opened up and you just gave it a shot?
Well, I was working. Well, I got licensed in '88, thinking that it would be a nice retirement job. So I got ready
Nice.
back in '88
Wow.
for it.
Wow.
And an opportunity came up, and here I am.
Now, what does it take to become a building inspector? I've always wanted to ask that question.
Well, back in '88, there was you had to spend a lot of time submitting paperwork. There was no internet, and
Right. Yeah.
you pretty much had to get everything documented in photocopies and affidavits, and they ran background checks.
Yeah.
And then you had to sit for the test, and depending on the score you got on the test, whether you got licensed or not.
Really?
And a lot of people took it 2 or 3 times. A lot of people that are still doing the job. I passed the first time through, but
Congratulations.
didn't have a job. So,
Right.
it was a backup thing.
Okay.
So, now to do it, it's a 65-day class
Really?
that
Wow.
you have to take, and then you got to pass the test. And that's
Okay.
after you've provided that you have some experience. You have to prove 10 years of experience being in responsible charge, as they put it.
That's interesting.
It's an interesting term they use.
Yeah.
But once you do that, do the 65 days, pass all the little intermediate tests, and then you pass the full 8-hour test. And the problem then becomes is finding a job.
Right.
There's 169 towns,
Uh-huh.
and building officials generally die in position.
In their positions, yeah.
Say, right.
They're not ready to leave yet. I don't blame them after going through all that.
So you pretty much have to start out as an assistant someplace, and eventually things open up. But
Cool.
It's a multi-year commitment.
Yeah, it sounds that way. But it'll take you well into retirement.
Well, hopefully.
Yeah.
So
Stick around here. Keep us company.
my question is, how do you do it in the process of keeping up with codes, state codes, building codes? How do you do that?
We're Connecticut made it easy on us for a number of years. We had a building code that took effect in 2005, and they updated it in 2016. So we didn't have a whole lot to update ourselves on for a number of years.
Okay.
Now we're doing it every 2 years.
Yeah.
And they've always required 30 hours a year of continuing education. So that's about a morning a month if you want to keep up with it.
Okay.
That's the bare minimum.
Right.
If you really want to do the job, you got to spend a lot of nights reading. You got to read manufacturers' brochures. You got to keep reading the trade journals to understand the new techniques, new methods, and as I've heard you say, some Jameson helps.
Yeah, right.
Yes, you have been listening.
I prefer, in my experience, in my time with working with building inspectors, who are approachable. And it is, the way I've grown up is that if you don't have the answer, ask the question, not just assume or you think that's the way you should do it. I don't feel stupid about that, especially when I'm dealing with someone who is very knowledgeable. I'd rather do it once and do it right.
I absolutely encourage everybody to come ask when in doubt.
Yeah.
Especially if it's the first time working in a particular area. While we're all working off the same book, some of us focus more on different things, but some of us being different building officials.
Yeah.
Somebody that's got a background as an electrical contractor maybe doesn't understand structure quite as well as somebody that's got a background in structure. So depending on which jurisdiction you're in, they may or may not be a different focus. So I encourage everybody to come talk. I think Colin will tell you I spend a lot of time trying to explain why different codes are in effect so that it makes it easier for you to comply. If you understand the reason for the code, it becomes easier to do.
Well, as you know, when you became the official here in town, I did ask for a meeting with you. And I sat down and we talked about different things, just so I can kind of get a feel as to exactly what it is, he's looking for. Because as a contractor, and the contractor out there knows, when you put together a permit, going through the process, which we'll talk about in a little bit, is you're going to put a lot of work into that, and you're doing drawings, you're doing everything else. So you might as well make sure you're hitting exactly what the official's looking for. So you're not wasting his time, your time, everybody's time.
Correct. I agree with that.
I will tell you, when you're putting together those packages, you can't put too much information.
It's a good point.
Okay?
Yeah.
No building official is going to reject the plan because you gave them an extra look at something.
That's a very good point.
The problem is when there's not enough, when I got to sit there and try to figure out and read your mind, then you're going to get rejected.
Right.
If you give me all the information up front, it's a lot smoother process.
Right.
So.
Yeah, no, I agree, definitely, for sure. So what is the permit process? What does a contractor or a homeowner, because I'm assuming they both have to go through the same process.
Both have the same process.
Yep. So what's that process?
Well, you're going to start by putting together at least your preliminary concepts. And then you want to come down, and that's when you really want to have your first conversation.
So the preliminary concept is a drawing, something written down?
Even a thought in your head. If somebody wants to finish their basement, come down and ask, what do I need to finish the basement? And then we can talk about the different things that you're going to have to provide me for documentation to do that.
Great.
And what other departments may or may not be involved. So finishing a basement, the health department's involved.
Right.
Because it could be another bedroom. So they look at the septic system. And if it's a zoning question, he's going to look and make sure you're not sneaking a mother-in-law apartment in or whatever the case may be. So there's other departments that are also involved.
Right. So then there's the paperwork process that, once they've got everything kind of figured out, they've got to actually go fill out the actual permit.
Then you're going to have some sketches and drawings, and depending on exactly what you're doing, when they may need, in the case of a basement, mechanical ventilation,
Right.
heating, how you're going to insulate it. What are we doing for fire separations if that's an issue?
Yep.
How are we getting in and out?
Right.
those
Yep.
types of
Egress,
things.
everything else. Sure. Okay. And then about how long does it usually take before they hear?
Well, when I took over, it was taking better than 8 weeks.
That's a long
we're,
time.
We're down to about 5 days. So
Oh, wow.
Wonderful.
That's fast.
That's
That's fast
great.
for
Yeah.
any town, though.
That's my goal, is to make nobody wait more than a week for a response.
Sure.
And,
Yeah.
And then you may have to do some more research, but I'm going to give it the first run through within within a working week.
Gotcha.
Cool.
Now, I've heard something along the way, and I really, truly believe this is just a myth, so you're going to have to squash it for me, that if it takes more than 30 days to hear back, it's automatically approved.
That's not true.
That's okay. That's
The,
what I
the
thought.
state
Yep.
statute says that the building department has 30 days to review and respond to a permit application.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's all it says.
Okay.
Doesn't say
Doesn't
it's
say.
not automatically approved. Doesn't say there's any penalty.
Yeah.
Doesn't say there's any fine. It says you have 30 days.
Okay.
Yeah,
Fair
so-
enough.
So
If you're busy, you're busy.
Right. And that's our goal. Obviously, we don't
Sure.
want to ever go past that. But there are
Yep.
times when we've had to. When I took over, there was a bit of a backlog.
Yes, I remember.
And several big projects come in along the way on top of that. So, but we're caught up. I don't want it to be more than a week now, and at least under my watch. And,
Yep. Fair enough.
hopefully, that's where we stay.
That's great. That is great.
So the homeowner pulls a permit. What kind of work can a homeowner do?
Homeowner can do virtually anything in a single-family home.
Okay.
Okay, and it's got to be owner occupied.
Yep.
So it's just because they own the house doesn't mean they can do it. They have to be the ones living in it.
Oh, interesting. So if somebody has a rental
Legislatures-
property, no.
rental property has to be done by licensed people.
Okay.
Owner occupied can be done by the owner. Still has to meet the codes. Still has to have permits.
Yep.
Still
Yep.
has to have inspections.
Right.
The legislatures, thought, and it's pretty well established nationwide, is man's home is his castle doctrine, and people want to do their own things.
Sure.
And forcing them to hire a licensed contractor to do relatively simple tasks doesn't make sense. Most people are going to be pretty diligent on doing their own work in their own house.
Right.
Sure.
That being said, that's where most of any of our horror stories come
Which we'll get to at the end. Yes.
from. So,
We want to keep everybody peeled for that one. That one's going to be a good one. Yeah, so a homeowner can do pretty much anything they want now, but they also need to know what they have to do along the way. So there's got to be inspections
Yep.
and things along those lines. So what type of inspections do they have to do?
well, often there's a pre-inspection. So if somebody wants to do a finished basement or something, we'll take a stop over and kind of go through some of the areas that he's going to have to address,
Right.
which may or may not be left over from somebody else trying to do some work. So we run into that a lot. We'll go through those processes with them. They'll start their framing. If they're doing an addition, there'd be a foundation inspections, footing inspections. There's a whole list that's available on our website.
Okay.
And you can look at all the various inspections, but it goes all the way through the framing, the rough electrical, rough plumbing, heating, gas pressure tests,
Yep.
even drywall.
Yeah.
All get inspected, and then there's a final, which kind of wraps all those up.
Yep.
And
I usually tell people before you close the walls up with anything, make
that's
sure
a
you
big
have the
key.
official come out. So that way they can see everything.
We don't want to cover anything.
Right.
So,
Right.
you do a footing, and before you cover that with a wall, there's an inspection.
Right.
Before you cover the wall with backfill, there's an inspection.
Yep.
And so forth and so on. You don't want to bury anything.
Right.
Because in new construction, I'd probably make you unbury it.
Right. Makes sense.
So,
Nobody wants to go through that.
Well, it depends on what's behind it, too. If there's rough wiring and gas pipes and things like that, you're going to unbury it. I'm
Sure.
not going to sign off on
Right.
that type of
Yeah.
thing
No, it's too
without
dangerous.
having actually seen it.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense for sure.
I had to go look at a job once. Actually, I got called by a realtor because they were trying to sell the house, and when the the realtor, the other buyer's realtor came in, they said, "Wait a minute, this room was added on. It's not on the list." So I had to go in and I had to cut holes in the sheetrock for the inspector to check for the insulation. They had to check the wiring, And what they did is they made an egress, so they put a doorway up in an attic area, and there was not enough space. They had to go through the state. It got held back from the state to try to get that passed through. It was a little bit of touch and go there.
That's about once a week. One of those pops up.
Really?
Typically on a sale, that's when we find them where there's a finished basement. A home inspector or the real estate agent, if they're doing their due diligence, they're going to come look at our files and say, okay, they're trying to sell, a 4-bedroom house, but you guys have it listed as 3-bedroom. Where'd that other bedroom come from?
Right.
And that's when we get involved and say, okay, there's a basement that was never there before.
Right.
And now you've got to make it meet today's codes. And often the answer is, well, we did it 15 years ago, but you got to make it meet today's codes.
Right.
Because you're going to take out a permit today.
Correct.
And that's what we're going to make you comply to. So that often means, yes, removing some finishes, changing some outlets, providing mechanical fresh air. Windows may or may not be correct, depending on where you are. The old basement window, which was a single glazed piece of glass in a little hatch opening, that's not going to work now that you've heated it.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of things. And we've run into a lot of cases where they didn't have enough ceiling height, and there's no exemption from that. They take it out.
Wow.
Take that suspended ceiling out. Take it out.
No, take up the
Take
whole
out
room.
the whole thing.
Yeah.
You might have to strip it down. If you only got 6 foot to the floor joists, you might have to take it all out.
Yeah.
And there are people that have finished that, that space is
Yeah.
for whatever reason as a rec room.
Oh, they must be pissed.
Oh, they're not happy.
No.
But,
And then you're the bad guy, right?
I become the bad guy.
Right.
But
It's not your fault.
part of our mission is not only protecting life and property from the people that are there now, but it's for the next people.
Right.
Yep.
Exactly.
And, if we're doing our job right, a fireman never has to go searching around in a basement with a 6-foot ceiling looking for people.
Right.
Because there shouldn't be living space. There shouldn't be bedrooms there. And
Right.
we've run into that in many cases.
Right.
We'll be there looking at a boiler replacement, and I got a duct to get under the beam, and lo and behold, there's a bedroom in the corner.
Jeez.
We got to deal with that. I can't unsee that.
Yeah.
And that makes me the not so good guy sometimes. And we just had a case today. People bought a house in Old Black Point. The previous owner had been fully aware that they had finished the whole basement in a floodplain.
Oh.
And their answer to curing the problem was to sell it to somebody for cash, so nobody did any homework.
Nice.
Now the new owner's got a basement that they're going to have to take out.
Oh.
So I can't wait to make that phone call.
Oh.
Oh my God.
Here, give him my card.
So I have a place in New Hampshire, and there are people that talking basically about septic systems, and one thing they talk about is what constitutes a bedroom or a bathroom, and it's so much. You can have so many bathrooms, but it's the bedrooms are the issue. Is that correct?
The bedrooms are, ultimately it's a health department issue, and they have a whole sizing program, but in Connecticut, septic systems are based on bedrooms.
Okay.
Because that's their anticipated number of people that are going to be using it.
Correct.
And they estimate 2 people per bedroom, and that's where they get their daily, gallon counts on how they're going to size the systems. So if a room could become a bedroom, they count it as a bedroom for septic system purposes, up to 5. So, once, if you're building a 6-bedroom house, it's probably because you got a couple of guest rooms.
So I'm going to run this one by you right now. I have at my place, I have a small bedroom. I want to make it larger. Can that be an issue? Even though because it's just too small to put in a closet.
Not unless you're adding a bedroom.
I'm not adding a
If
bedroom. I
you're
just want to
making
expand
it bigger, that's fine.
That's okay. All right, that's fine. And there's a term, acquired living space. Do you hear that at all?
Well,
Ever?
that sounds like something New Hampshire would come up with.
Right, and it is. It is. I mean, there were issues that they have. When you're near the water and you're near a lake, they are. They get a little.
Well, some of the they may be talking about zoning issues at that point.
Right.
From building codes
Yeah.
issues. That's not a term in the building codes.
Right. Okay.
And we share the same building code with 38 different states.
Okay.
With some minor exceptions. Connecticut felt they had to stick their finger in a few cases. Adjust
Really?
some things,
Great.
and that they know better than the other 38 states.
Of course.
But,
Look at how great we're doing.
All right, so brings up another great question. Grandfathered in. This is grandfathered in when you.
that's my favorite term.
His
Okay.
favorite term.
There are things that are grandfathered in.
All right.
They must be pre-existing.
Correct.
And legally pre-existing. So, just because you're working on a deck doesn't make the deck grandfathered unless somebody took out a permit for the deck in the first place
All right.
and had it inspected and had it approved. So we run into that a lot where somebody finished a basement in 1980, and then we catch on to it now when we make them do certain things, and I hear it every day, but it's already here, it's grandfathered. Well, no, it wasn't legal in the first place.
Right.
It's not grandfathered. Right. If it's legally pre-existing, it's a legal basement, then yes, it's grandfathered. You don't have to do anything to it except for whatever you happen to be working on, but you wouldn't have to make the whole thing compliant. If it's not legitimate, then you're going to make the whole thing compliant or remove it. Those are your two choices at that point. So anything before 1972 in East Lyme is grandfathered, but just by its existence, there were no building codes. So just the fact that
Okay.
it existed in 1971 makes it pre-existing.
Okay.
If you've modified it since then, finished a basement, added a second floor, put additions on, those are all should have a CO for those.
Right. Okay.
But now, is there anything that would be alarming to the point where it's a huge, just really, really scary situation, like, electrical or something like that? Would you make somebody change it at that point because it's a safety issue and not grandfathered in?
Well, yes. I mean,
Yeah.
you can have equipment that's deteriorated to
Yep.
the point of being unsafe. And that does happen. It happens with electrical, it happens
Sorry.
with gas piping, oil tanks, things of that nature. And you have, stairs that over time nobody's kept up or
Sure.
have become decrepit. But just by virtue of its age, wouldn't necessarily do that. It would have to actually become an unsafe condition.
Okay.
We run into that quite a bit.
I bet.
And most mortgage companies now will make you change, if you have knob and tube wiring, or
Right,
if you
that's
have
true.
fuses,
Yep.
they'll make you change.
Yep.
There's nothing inherently unsafe with those. There's no requirement to change them from our perspective.
Okay.
If they're still in good shape, they're still perfectly safe.
Yeah.
Right.
You got to take some certain precautions, especially with knob and tube.
Yeah,
There's
that's scary
there's
stuff.
No ground.
Yeah, no ground at all.
And grounds will fix a multitude of sins.
Yes, it will.
So a term of like grandfathered in is when a deck was built, the stairway was not to code at the time. Well, the code has changed. It's now.
Right.
It was.
It would have had to been the code at the time it
Right.
was built and legally inspected and CO'd or
It was
certificate of
CO'd.
approval.
So that's grandfathered.
That's
in.
grandfathered in.
Gotcha.
It's a
Wow.
legitimate deck because
Yeah.
certainly things have changed. I
Yeah.
mean, decks in particular have become a lot more stringent in the last few years.
Yeah, they have.
But
it's a good
we
thing.
wouldn't expect an old deck to meet today's standards.
No way. Oh my God, no way.
But,
Mine's cantilevered off the cottage. It's can't. So basically, and there was no footings. So, oh my God, when it rises and falls,
Yeah.
the addition my parents had the house put on the cottage.
Yeah.
You can see it. It's got a little bit a bend to it. You got a little
sure.
bump in the floor.
Wow.
So it's doing one of these.
Yep.
So when I get my work done, that deck is coming off, baby.
Uh-oh.
Get that built right to code. Grandfather is gone.
Nice. Now, once you pull a permit, how long is it valid for?
180 days
180 days.
with a couple of caveats.
Okay.
One is you can ask for an extension, which is routinely granted. And it's 180 days of no work. So if you're
Okay.
working on a project continuously, you call us out every couple of months for an inspection. That's fine. You're working on
Yep.
it. If we don't hear from you for 6 months, then it's going to be deemed closed unless you ask for an extension. And that happens, especially if a homeowner's doing a project and,
Yeah, that's me.
it's a financial
Yep.
thing. We get that. So
Yep.
we don't worry about that. If it's a 1 or 2 family house, after 9 years, it's closed. That's by statute. And believe it or not, we have projects that have gone on past 9 years.
I bet. Wow.
Where somebody was finishing a rec room or finishing a bonus room, took out the permit and did a little bit every weekend, got stalled for a year or two from, family matters. And then they come back to it and, oh, by the way, you're in your 10th year.
Yeah.
So you got to take out a new permit.
Yep.
And now everything you do is got to meet the new
Means
codes.
the new codes, right?
So,
Yeah. That's how long it took me to do my kitchen. So.
Well,
Just kept going and
I
going.
did a half bath. Took 34
There you go.
years.
There you go.
I hold the record. So.
That is the record, actually. Yeah. I don't think I know anybody who could beat that one.
What's the most important thing you want homeowners to know?
I want them to know that we're not there just to raise their taxes.
Yeah.
That's what they're afraid of.
Because many of them, that's their concern. They're not going to get a permit because they're just going to raise my taxes. Most of what you're going to do on your house, finishing a basement, adding a hot tub, replacing your windows, is not going to change your tax bill more than a couple of dollars in the real world. But we're going to make sure that you're doing it to the current codes, that you don't have a problem a couple of years down the road when you go to sell the place, and then we have to backtrack and fix things. And depending on what you're doing, if there's a problem, for instance, you put a wood stove in without a permit, you could do it, you could get away with it for years, but when your house has a fire, the insurance company is going to show up and say, well, let's see the permit for that wood stove. And then you got a problem collecting.
I better take care of that because I got a pellet stove. I just bought one and put it in, and they had it.
You're not alone. That happens quite often, and it's not that the insurance company won't pay for it, but they're going to make you jump through a lot of hoops to do so, and they'll probably knock something off. I mean, we've heard many cases, and if it's a situation where you knew you weren't supposed to do it, now you got a whole different problem.
Right.
There's the jurisdictions and the insurance companies will take ignorance to a degree, but if you two guys get caught doing work without a permit, what's your
never.
What's your excuse?
Right,
and
it's
right.
ignorance.
Yeah.
That's just stupid.
Well, that's just trying to pull something over on somebody at that point. 'Cause,
Right.
If you do everything by code, what's the big deal of getting the building inspector
It's
involved?
not a big problem.
No.
It's for your protection,
Sure.
and the protection of the other people
And the
living in
homeowner.
the house,
Yeah, and the homeowner,
your
for sure.
neighbors,
Yeah.
And future homeowners.
Yeah.
So we're not there just to be red tape
Sure.
obstacles. We are there, like I said, if we do our job correctly, the firemen never have to show up.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's true. Very true. No, definitely need you guys. Need all of you guys.
All right. So that's the most important thing we want contractors to know is you're not the bad guy. I mean, do it once, do it right. Do it once and do it right.
Yep.
Much easier. Especially, like you brought it up earlier. Come in and ask questions when in doubt.
Yep. Now, who should pull the permit?
Well, on any project, the owner can pull the permit.
Right.
The owner's agent can pull the permit. That could be his lawyer, could be their wife, whoever it may be.
Yeah.
Or their licensed contractor. So depending on the nature of the work, the contractor, if it's going to be a complete remodel job, they should take out the permit because they're going to be acting as a general contractor.
Right.
Okay.
If it's a homeowner going to act as the general contractor, they're taking on the responsibility of checking licenses, of checking insurances, things like that. We check that stuff from a licensed contractor. If they come in, we make sure their insurances are up to date, their licenses are up to date, and it gives the homeowner recourse if there is a problem. Because as contractors, there's two classifications. One's licensed and one's registered. Licensed contractors are plumbers, electricians, heating contractors. You have immediate recourse to them no matter what. So you can let them take out the permit, or you can take out the permit. Either way. In the case of a registered home improvement contractor or a registered new home contractor, you have to have them take out the permit if you want recourse through the courts. Simply, because there's state funds in place to assist homeowners when there's problems.
Right.
And those were all brought up. Everybody's heard horror stories about the vinyl siding salesman going door to door.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I got some leftover asphalt in my truck.
Yeah,
all the time.
those
All
are good
those-
ones. Yeah.
Those are all classics, and so that led to the requirement for registration of home improvement contractors. So I always recommend, even though the homeowner can take out the permit, they should let the registered contractor take out the permit. And in fact, I would insist. If it were me, I would insist.
Uh-huh.
That's what I tell every customer when they ask that question. I tell them exactly what you said. I said, even if you don't go with me, that's fine, but do make the contractor pull the permit.
And if you run into a contractor that absolutely does not want to, there's usually a reason for
Yeah.
Red flag.
And that should be a red flag.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, the good thing about, too, is the internet is you can look up that contractor right away, and you can find out if his license is expired
Yep.
or it's current,
And you can go on Department of Consumer Protection, too,
Yep.
and pull up by the license and
Yep.
see
Yep.
if they are
Yep.
licensed and
Yep.
doing what they're supposed to be doing.
I'm a good boy. You're a good boy.
I am. I try.
Yeah.
I try. So are there things that you don't necessarily need to have a permit for?
Cosmetics.
Cosmetics.
So,
Painting.
I don't care about painting. I don't care about wallpaper.
Yeah.
Finished floors, carpeting. You're going to redo your ceiling. Doesn't matter to me. Redoing your tile.
Yeah.
Even so much as taking kitchen cabinets down, putting new kitchen cabinets up. That's
Yep.
cosmetic.
Yep.
When you
That's
start
good to know.
relocating things
Mm-hmm.
within the house, then you're into my territory. So if you're going to relocate the sink or you're going to move outlets,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to rearrange the shower and the toilets, that's where you need permits. And anything to do with a permanent setup in the house. So that would be your envelope, your windows, doors,
Mm-hmm.
siding, roofing, any structural issues, of course.
Yep.
New boilers, hot water makers, things of that nature. All,
Pellet
all
stoves.
require permits. Pellet stove.
Yeah, thank you.
Wood
See, I just
stoves.
got my ass handed to me. We
That wasn't too
promised
bad.
you that would happen. Here it is. Bang.
Most things that are plug and play.
Yep.
Dishwasher, refrigerator, certainly not.
Yep.
Not in our category. But if you were going to hook up a dishwasher where there was no dishwasher before, you're probably going to come to me because you're going to have to add electrical out.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
That makes sense.
other than that, like cosmetics, not our thing.
Okay. So, of course, you've listened to our show before. You know what's coming. Horror stories.
Got a
Something
horror
that-
story?
Well,
I'm sure he's got way
Maybe
more
one,
than we do.
two tree.
I got a small book started at home.
There you go.
We could start with Colin.
No. We'll start with Jimmy.
No, you can't start with me
No.
either.
No, I haven't had the pleasure of inspecting any of Jimmy's work.
Yeah,
Not yet.
because I'm really not really down in your area. But now that you know who I am, I'll stop in.
But
Stephen Way writing a book called "Are You Kidding Me?"
that's a good title.
It
It
is.
is.
Now, we do run into it, and a lot of what we have is, I'll say, people that have come from different cultures where they're not familiar with how we do things in this area or in not just this area, in conformance with codes.
Yep.
We've got a lot of people that their culture or where they're from, they had no enforcement.
Yeah.
They learned how to do something from a neighbor.
Sure.
And in some cases, they do it pretty good. In some cases, they do it just barely enough that the house didn't blow up.
Right.
And that's the problems because they don't know anything about permits. They don't, it's not something that's in their culture. So we run into that problem a lot. And, Norwich, Montville has a lot more of it.
Yeah.
They have a lot of influx through the casinos.
Right.
We don't really have that much of a problem down here, but we get some of it.
Yep.
But we try to be very careful of that because some of those folks have no fear, and they'll cut into live gas lines, live electrical lines, and splice tees in. And you see what just happened in Mexico yesterday. They cut into a live gasoline pipeline.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't hear that. Yeah.
To try to steal gas, and blew half the town off the map.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's horrible.
It's sort of what they've learned how to do it,
Yep.
and they try to do it around here, and that's some of the horror stories we
Ugh.
get. We get a lot of cases where somebody's been in a house for 35, 40, 50 years. they were fairly handy, and they could run a few outlets here and there.
Yep.
And next thing you know, there's a lot of outlets here and there.
Wow.
And then the next owner buys the property, and problems start occurring.
Right.
Things, maybe grounds weren't done right.
Yep.
We've overloaded some circuits and not others. The guy that did it figured his workarounds. He knew how to work it.
Yeah.
But, it's not safe for all.
Yeah, no,
conditions.
no.
We run into that a lot. And the same with some carpentry.
Yeah.
People throw up a deck
Scary.
without, checking how it's supposed to be done.
Right,
Get a
right.
permit and,
Especially if it's a second story deck too. I mean,
some
those things come
without,
crashing down.
without footings, and they,
Yep.
they heave in the frost. And,
Well, it's also the big thing now is that I got to stay on top of the fasteners change all the time, right? The Simpson.
I told you I would love
Yeah.
to meet who their salesman is, because their name is in the books, and you cannot use anything else but their stuff.
well,
And it's good stuff too. I don't want to say it's not, but
in actuality, there's three major companies that make the fasteners. Simpson
Okay.
is the smallest of the three.
really.
They're the biggest in this part of the country.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
United Steel Products is the largest, and they make everything that Simpson makes and then some.
Yep.
They're available. Lowe's carries United Steel Products, and I think Rings End does, but maybe not.
Okay.
But yeah, most people are familiar with the Simpson name.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, there's three companies that all make the same type of hardware.
Okay.
They all do the same thing. They of course got different model numbers, which makes things confusing.
Right.
But they all have cross-reference charts, and you can just hit the internet and
Sure.
Google one, and it'll give you the cross-references to the other ones. Yeah, there's a lot of new hardware. The hardware, fasteners, pretty important things when it comes to structure. And a lot of folks will say, well, it's overkill. We got buildings that were built in the 1800s that didn't have any of that stuff. And
I do say that periodically myself. Yes.
And
Still standing.
Yep.
and that's a valid point. And they were, if we go look at some of those houses, they were built with 2x8 floor joists that actually measure 2x8.
Right.
That have no knots in them.
Mm-hmm.
That are made from first generation cuts, so they're very tight ring growths.
Mm-hmm.
And if we look at a modern house, it's made with 2x4s that were grown in about 3-4 years.
Mm-hmm.
There's 4 ring growths in the whole 2x4. You got a lot of dimensional engineered lumber that's wood chips glued together.
Mm-hmm.
Great stuff. It's great use of resources, but it's different. And it's not the same. We're not building houses the same way we built them 100 years ago.
Okay.
Right.
We're using completely different lumber. Some of it is better. Some of it is not so good.
Still work in progress,
But
right?
it works.
Yep.
But the offset to that is you got to use some extra hardware.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great trade-off to get the resources instead of wasting the trees like we would have done years ago. They're getting full value out of the trees. I mean, they're not wasting anything.
Right.
But we got to put some steel and some extra screws and nails in.
There
Yeah.
you go. Yeah.
I'm amazed at how the exterior sheathing is changing every couple of years. It's now purple, green, blue. It's all this.
Yeah.
I was a union carpenter back in the day when we were doing the Mohegan Sun or Foxwood. We were using like a Den's glass, which had like a fiberglass outside with the sheetrock on the inside for like exterior. And I guess Den's glass would hold up for like 6 to 8 months outside. I mean, that's what I was told. I'm not.
Well, and it will, and it's meant to have a stucco finish over it typically,
Yeah.
or some other siding. Perfectly good. Still gets used a lot, but mostly for fire separation walls. But still perfectly viable product. Most modern sheathings are an OSB composite type product. Some of the old timers still insist on plywood. From an engineering point of view,
What do you suggest?
Personally, I always recommend zip board, the zip system,
The new stuff.
Yeah.
which is a different type of OSB. It's the way it's laminated together is different, and it's got a 20% stronger structural value, and it's good, rated for to be 6 to 8 months outside in the weather easily.
Yeah.
And it comes pre-coated with a weather barrier. So for energy purposes, for weather resistant purposes, for structural purposes, it overcomes a bunch of different obstacles. The 20% extra structural helps when people turn up the air pressure on the guns a little too high, maybe shoot the nails in a little too deep. That kind of offsets some of that, so that's good.
Cool.
That's assuming they use the right size nails to start with. But
That's another thing.
it's another issue entirely, right, Colin?
Absolutely. No, I even asked Jimmy, I go, Jimmy, what kind of nails do you use to hang joist hangers?
Right.
And what's the answer?
Joist hanging nails.
Exactly.
And it's,
Except.
that's about the only thing you can't use them for.
Right.
That was the craziest thing. Everybody in my crew that was on the site that day when he came in, and they were just like, what?
It is a hard conversation to have, but to this day I have it once a week.
Still,
at least.
yeah.
It's stamped right on the side of the joist hanger.
Yeah, none of us ever looked.
Nobody looks.
No.
And that makes my job easy. I just say, give me one of the joist
Right,
hangers,
yeah.
and I show you where it's stamped right on the side of it.
There's not much we could say then.
We catch it a lot because most of the suppliers send out a box of joist hangers. They'll send out a box of joist hanger nails
Correct.
with it.
Yep.
And they're good in some circumstances, but there's a couple of structural parts of those joist hangers that cannot be done with those short nails.
Right.
They need a full-size nail. And that's not so easy when you got to start yanking them out with a cat's paw after.
Yeah. We only had a couple up ourselves, but you had told me a story about some guy who did an entire deck with them. Had to rip them up. I'm like, it's horrible.
There's been guys done entire houses and had to take them off.
Oy vey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not the most popular guy on the block that day either, but
Nobody's buying you
I've
lunch.
generally found they only do that once.
Right.
Well, yeah. That's not going to happen again. Now, I know we're running along now. We'll wrap this up. So what's your feeling on the new energy codes? Do you feel that it's going to be beneficial? There's a lot of us that talk about it and go, are they sealing the house up too much? Is there not enough natural air going through? Are people going to get sick from it being like so tight?
Well, back in the 80s, we started with the energy crush. We started 2x6 walls. We started sealing windows better than we had in the past.
Yep.
And there was a lot of the same type of talk back
Yep.
then. Turns out none of the homesickness issues came to bear.
Okay.
But we've gotten to the point now where they probably will.
Yep.
The code now requires no more than 3 air changes per hour on a new home, and requires mechanical ventilation. So it requires you to bring in fresh air from the outside.
Right.
So they have recognized within the code that it's going to be an issue. So you have to bring in the fresh air.
Yep.
So that mitigates that problem. So the common assumption is, well, geez, now I'm bringing in fresh air. Why am I doing that?
Yeah.
It's a controlled fresh air.
Okay.
You're bringing it in systematically as needed, as opposed to randomly leaking in through cracks and crevices
Right.
that are maybe not in the most advantageous locations.
Okay.
The energy codes are something that have to happen. Unless somebody knows something I don't about the fossil fuels, at some point we're going to run out.
I would think
at
so.
some point, and I don't know when that point is, but we keep building houses that require fossil fuels, and they're becoming less and less and less of them. Locally, we got nothing but electricity generated by nuclear power.
Right.
Again, unless somebody knows something I don't know, they ain't going to let them build no more nuclear power plants.
I don't think so.
across the
No.
bay.
No.
So we got to figure out what we're going to be doing for not only fossil fuels.
Yep.
And if we wind up having to burn fossil fuels for electricity, we got to make some trade-offs.
Yep.
So there's been a big push, federal and state, for solar.
I've got it.
You guys have
I'm
had
the
some
guy.
solar on.
Yep.
You've got solar in your place.
Yep.
I think you're going to see, and California has already done it, has mandated new construction builds in zero energy footprints. So you build a new house in California, you are putting solar panels on.
Wow.
And I think you're going to start seeing that more and more across the country.
Yep.
And that will lower the cost of those systems too, of course.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
And make them more standardized, more utility, much more like a plug-and-play system.
Right.
Where they can be put in without a lot of rigmarole that we have to go through now.
Right.
And I think we got to get to that point where we're building houses that are not using more energy than they can produce in and of themselves. And as the solar gets better, that's going to take care of itself. We won't have to worry about millstone.
Yep.
They'll start, I predict, with the commercial buildings. So we already have a lot of solar farms around, but you're going to see people that are building some of these 150, 200,000 square foot buildings. They're just going to flood the roof with solar panels.
Sure.
And
Well,
operate themselves.
yeah, that should.
Apple's campus is completely 100%
Right. I've
zero
heard that.
footprint use.
Yep.
It's all solar.
Yep.
And I mean, granted, they're in sunny Southern California.
Well, yeah, it's kind of
but,
a nice place to be.
I think you're going to start seeing those mandates being required, because energy is just something that, as a modern society, if they shut it off tomorrow, we're going to have a world of hurt.
Yeah.
So we have to deal with it. So we're going to save where we're wasting it now, and we're going to come up with better ways of producing it,
Right.
in a more local manner. So,
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of homeowners who would be happy to see millstone go because it changes their their view down on the water.
Sure. Yeah.
It's always sad to see somebody right on the water paying what they're paying, and they're staring right at millstone.
Well, in some ways, it's a beautiful building.
I don't know about that.
I don't even see it anymore when I'm down there.
Well, that's what they say too.
know?
After a while,
you
people
forget
that come
about
on
that.
over, they go, just look right. Don't look to the left.
Right.
That's all.
Well, I worked over there when they were building it.
Did you?
So,
My father did
I
at one point, too,
I have
yeah.
a certain soft spot.
Yeah.
for 'em.
Yeah. All right. We'll not pick on them anymore then. All right, Steve. Well, thank you very, very much for coming
Yeah,
in
Steve.
and educating us as well as our listeners. So we really do appreciate that.
Not a problem. Glad to do it.
Yeah.
Glad for you guys to have me here. And,
Absolutely. Well, we'll definitely put it out there again. You know, if
you
anybody.
get another pile of questions, bring
Yeah.
it back. My office is walking distance over here. So,
Well,
not
it's a little too
problem.
far for me to walk. I'm taking my car. So
Well, not on a day like today.
that's true. Very
One
true.
quick question. I
Uh-oh.
just read. We talked about cosmetic.
Yeah.
And somebody brought this up. Is a roof replacing a roof? Is that cosmetic? Or do you
No,
need a
that's,
permit?
that's structural.
That's
That's part of your
structural.
building envelope.
Okay, so you
And,
need a permit for
absolutely.
a roof. Great.
And probably the number one thing that we catch people doing without permits.
Yeah.
Oh wow, yeah.
Um,
Well, it's kind of hard to hide.
It's kind of hard to hide, unfortunately, and I hate to give all roofing contractors a bad name, but they know that the average house they can slam out in a day, so they take their chances. And there's no penalty for not getting the permit, other than the evil eye that I might give them, but they just try to get away with it, basically.
Yeah.
And if they're doing a job on a dead end road, pretty good chance they're going to get away with it.
Yeah.
Now, we had a case not too long ago where I happened to be driving by, and there's a crew of people on a roof stripping it. As I know I didn't sign a permit for a roof permit there, so I pull in the driveway. What's going on? And they tell me, and I start checking. Okay, you don't have this, you don't have that. We had some communication issues, and I wound up talking on the phone to the company owner, and he immediately ran down and got a permit.
Yep.
Well, part of the problem now is that he's putting 4 skylights in. So he's cut
Oh.
four holes for skylights.
Yep.
And he's in the windborne debris region. You can pretty well be assured that he did not buy the proper skylights.
No, he did not.
So now he's got 4 giant holes in the roof, and he's got to do something. So he's put the skylights in, finished the roof job, and now we got to deal with the skylights, which he may have to change. Which on a brand new roof.
Oh my God.
And there's no pass on skylights. They must be windborne debris resistant
Sure,
if you're
yeah.
within a mile of the coast.
Right.
So,
Well, like you always say, south of 95.
yeah, south of 95.
Yep. It's pretty much where we are.
I think we have a whole other show where you just hit that point, and I was like, oh, and I should have brought this up because it's so controversial with other people. Let's have him back on. We'll talk about windows.
Yep.
That's hurricane windows.
Yep.
Which we need, which people talk about that back and forth, goes back and forth.
Yeah, there is actually a whole show on that, I
Oh,
think.
yeah.
To be honest with you, yeah. I've had my experiences.
Yeah,
so.
because we're out of time now.
Yeah.
But definitely have him back on.
Not a
and
problem.
Set the
Absolutely.
record straight. on
Steve,
I-
thanks again. Really appreciate it.
Happy to educate people. It makes my life easier if you have the information up front.
Beautiful.
that. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right. Thank you, Jimmy. Get better, huh?
I will.
All right, man. I'll talk to you later.